A group of archaeologists is unearthing ancient mysteries in the shadow of the first pyramid built in ancient Egypt. They made an incredible discovery while digging a temple for the cat goddess Bastet. These relics, which were buried more than 2,500 years ago, shed an intriguing light on life and death in the land of the pharaohs. Archaeologists discovered a treasure trove of ancient artifacts while digging close to an Egyptian pyramid, approximately 15 miles away from Cairo, Egypt's modern metropolis, or the ruins of Memphis, an ancient Egyptian city on the Nile River. It was once the kingdom's capital and home to approximately 100,000 people. However, the region is primarily known today for the magnificent monuments dedicated to kings and noblemen following their deaths. The most renowned of these, obviously, is the incomparable pyramid, the main miracle of the antiquated world, actually remaining in present-day times. However, that was far from the only location where Memphis residents honored the deceased. In point of fact, the vast city's necropolis consisted of numerous burial grounds and structures that extended for many miles across the desert. Secara, a 5-mile stretch of necropolis between the ancient sites of Abkhaz plus and Daska, is one of the most significant of these. This vast burial ground was first used by high-ranking officials during the early dynastic period, which began in the 13th century BCE. By the Third Dynasty, it had become the final resting place of kings. Today, the main landmark in Secara is the Pyramid of Djoser, accepted to be the most established stone structure in the whole world. Built as the tomb of the second ruler of the Third Dynasty, this construction was planned by the renowned Egyptian engineer Imhotep, and with its scale and great year, he wanted to get the ruler's place in history for good, trying to make sure that Memphis could see the tomb. Imhotep planned a transcending step structure that arrived at an excess of 200 feet in level. The decor on the inside was made to look like the elegant interior of Joseph's palace, giving him the same luxuries in death as he had in life. Imhotep's grand temple was where Joseph was laid to rest when he died in 2575 BC. In addition, a number of kings have joined him in the Secara necropolis over time. For instance, in the fourth line, the ruler transports his scarf was covered close by in a burial chamber molded like a casket. Later, a few kings of the 5th dynasty selected Secara as the site of their pyramids. In addition, the pharaoh Anass was the first to decorate his monument with the ritualistic inscriptions known as the pyramid texts in the 24th century BCE. These were made to protect people after death and have been used for hundreds of years. Nonetheless, it was not only those of imperial blood who were covered at the sokar and acropolis. During the Old Kingdom, which lasted from the 26th to the 22nd century BC, nobles were also buried within its walls. Their tombs, called mastabas, are still visible today, despite not being as impressive as the pyramids. Over time, this deity became associated with more domesticated felines, and by the end of her era, she was worshipped as the sun god's protector of Ra. The ancient Egyptians built a temple complex and reproposed older tombs as catacombs in an effort to please the cat goddess Bastet. However, as a tribute to the revered deity, they buried the mummified bodies of numerous felines rather than human remains. Within the sanctuary that is referred to as the View Bastion, more than 100 sets of these relics have been discovered to this point. However, the Secara tombs were home to many other preserved animals in addition to the View Basti cats. In point of fact, djoser was mummified before being buried in his pyramid tomb. As per records, his prearranged remains were entombed in a rock vault found 90 feet underground. The ancient Egyptians used mummification to keep their dead bodies preserved for thousands of years, starting at least in 2600 BCE. It is believed that the practice continued until the Roman period, which began in 30 BCE and ended in 364 AD. However, the 3 dynasties of the New Kingdom, which lasted from the 18th to the 20th century, produced the most well-known examples that can be found today. The ancient Egyptians created a number of mummies that have stood the test of time during their dynasties, which spanned the period from around 1570 BCE to 1075 BCE. Tutankhamun, the famous pharaoh whose tomb was rediscovered in 1922, and a number of other significant rulers and kings were among these. In spite of the fact that there were various sorts of embalmment rehearsed by the Egyptians, the cycle by and large took north of 2 months to finish. A specially trained priest would begin the process of removing the subject's brain after removing all of the organs that were susceptible to immediate decay. Evidently, this includes utilizing a snared instrument to get bits of tissue through the nostrils, leaving the face in salvageable shape. The embalmers would then perform early modification rituals and cut a cut on the side of the body. In addition to the heart, the organs were buried in jars alongside the body. Later priests would preserve them and relocate them to their original locations. The remains were then covered in salt and allowed to dry. The mummy would then be wrapped in linen, the last step intended to keep the body alive long after death. But why were the ancient people so determined to perform this spooky ritual? It seems that the goal of the procedure was to make sure that people who were lucky enough to have their bodies embalmed would have a good time in the afterlife. Experts say that the ancient Egyptians believed that the soul was made up of 3 parts: the barak, the qa, and the soul. Also, while the first 2 elements could leave the body and enter the afterlife, the 3rd element would remain attached to the deceased person's body. As a result, mummification was a means of safeguarding the spirit's physical manifestation. Nonetheless, on the grounds that it was a particularly extended process, just the well-off were commonly ready to bear the cost of amplification. Even though ordinary people have chosen to be buried in this manner, noblemen and kings were typically the ones who did so. However, some ancient Egyptians used the same method to preserve animals despite the high cost of embalming. You can see that crocodile, baboon, and bird mummified remains have already been discovered in tombs from ancient Egypt and at Secara. A whole graveyard was devoted to the holy animals known as the abkhaz bulls, accepted to have been manifestations of Ta, an Egyptian god. These creatures were safeguarded and covered at the site close to the pyramid of Djoser. Experts still don't know why the ancient Egyptians decided to spend a lot of time and effort mummifying animals. Some say that the people may have worshipped and admired the creatures as if they were gods themselves. In any case, others accept that the treated bodies were really viewed as contributions as opposed to divinities by their own doing. To better comprehend the rites associated with death, archaeologists have studied the mummified remains found in Egyptian tombs over time. Furthermore, in November 2009, the country's relic service declared a critical new find. Researchers have discovered a fascinating cache of 26 dynasty artifacts at Bju Bastion. Perhaps most importantly, the ministry explained that 5 mummies belonging to big cats had been discovered by archaeologists. They revealed at the time that 2 of the relics belonged to lion cubs. Would have earned him a lot of respect. In ancient Egyptian iconography, the lion played a significant role. The College of Sydney's Connie Ruler told Public Geographic in 2019 the lion was an image of illustrious power. However, lion symbolism was likewise utilized in objects of day-to-day existence, like seats and beds. These could have been simply enhancing. However, almost certainly, there was a mystical importance to do with insurance. However, despite the significance of the lion in ancient Egypt, mummified lion remains are uncommon for archaeologists to discover. In fact, prior to the announcement of the most recent discovery in 2019, in 2004, only 1 other example had ever been discovered on Earth. Additionally, this artifact was retrieved from Secara's necropolis. Strangely, experts haven't been able to figure out why complexes like Secara have so few lion bones. However, Lord told National Geographic that the ancient Egyptians were perfectly capable of mummifying animals this size. The best methods, including removing organs, were used to mummify the abkhaz bull, a cult animal. In fact, Salima Vikram, an archaeologist at the American University in Cairo who examined the mummies, stated that the only obstacle would have been the smell. Compared to the herbivorous bulls, it appears that lions' organs would have produced a stronger stench because they are carnivores. However, this does not appear to be a sufficient explanation for the absence of big cats in the Secara tombs. Now, the fact that the lion was not specifically associated with any deity in Egyptian culture may have contributed to its rarity in mummification. Others, on the other hand, maintain that such relics were not really that uncommon and that archaeologists have only recently discovered them. Crumb even stated to National Geographic that she hoped that more would be discovered. Vikram told National Geographic that if the Sokar excavation continues, it is very likely that additional lion mummies will be discovered. Classical authors mentioned that lions were mummified in Egypt, and scholars like myself have been looking for a lion cemetery. However, up until that point, the 5 creatures that you basti and discovered represent a significant discovery, one of the most exciting series of animal mummy finds ever, in my opinion. In 2019, Ekrem informed The Guardian that the lion cubs were not the only thing discovered during the most recent excavations. In addition to the preserved remains, there were the remains of numerous other animals, including birds, crocodiles, cobras, and smaller felines. Additionally, a number of masks and a collection of cat statues made of bronze and wood were discovered by archaeologists. Altogether, there are hundreds of artifacts in the cache, all of which are thought to be from the same era. In 2019, Egypt's Antiquities Minister Colette Alini told Al Jazeera that the find was like a whole museum on its own. Experts say that a huge stone-carved scarab beetle is the other standout find. That is all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.